Marshall, Arkansas is a small town with rich history. Let's visit a jail turned into a museum.
This building was the 1902 Cersei County Jail building. It replaced a building called the Tombs, or the old Cersei County Bastille. It was a pretty bad building. But in 1902, they built this building. B.F. Henley of St. Joe at a cost of just over $16,000. And it was the Cersei County Jail until 1976. And at that point, they shut it down and moved to the new jail. And the buildings had a brief period of time there where the Cersei County retired teachers operated a museum from 1980 until about 2000. Then the Cersei County Chamber of Commerce got involved, and we came along and did all the paperwork for a nice grant. We had the building restored. It's on the National Register, but we had the building restored. And so last fall, we got the building, and through some very generous donations of local citizens, we were able to put together the Buffalo River Historic Jail and Museum. This is the first part of the jail. But through this door is where the sheriff would bring the people he had arrested. They were booked in here, and they later went upstairs. Now, the name Buffalo River actually goes back to Rio Cibolo. It's recorded in June 11, 1793 of a Spanish government land grant to Captain Don Joseph Villarreal. By the way, Cibolo is Comanche for buffalo. The Comanche were well established, and so they call those critters Cibolo, and the other First Peoples use the same term. This is the second floor of the jail museum. This was called the day room. We had men's cells and women's cells, but this was kind of a common area that they would share. Not at the same time, but they would have access to this. Now, one of the interesting stories that's here is that in our restoration, we wanted to keep as much of the original jail as possible. And I'm not sure how much you can see here, but we got all these scores, all this graffiti, all these marks where you could tell that people were counting their days off, how long that they had been in here, and some of them left their names. And here we are in the grand ballroom, so to speak. This is the old men's jail cell. And we've got a drunk tank, we've got places for them to sleep, and it is really a well-restored treasure. One of the things that is very important in a museum experience is not just to hear about history and see history, but to touch history. And we have a rare opportunity where you can do that. We have the old 1902 drunk tank. This is one of the things you get to do. You get to go into a drunk tank, get yourself a picture, throw yourself out on social media, do a TikTok movie. We don't care. We want our visitors to come and not just hear about history, but feel history. One of the really unknown or forgotten stories about this part of the country was, for a very brief time, this was a boom region. You had Rush, Leslie, and other communities which had many thousand people living in them, and many high-end services. You had the railroad you came through, you had zinc mining just north of the Buffalo, and there was a brief period of boom times where the high fashions and high-end products were available. One of the real constant themes of the stories that we tell here, and that's what we do, we tell stories. We tell the stories of the people, the culture. So many interesting and humorous characters were involved, and one of them was Peg Leg Decker. And he had an interest in art and photography, and he opened a studio up in Leslie and later opened a studio in Marshall. And in 1923, he moved off to back home to Indiana, but he left behind a treasure of old photographs, and they show a wonderful documentary of rather successful people, nice homes, nice people, as well as people on the railroad. And so we have access to some of those, but the entire collection is at the University of Arkansas. And so this is part of what we do here, and we invite you to come see.